10 spine-chilling ghost tales exposed. Discover the sinister secrets behind the haunted whispers. The once vibrant suburb of Ohio lay battered under a heavy blanket of fog, as if the very air mourned the loss of joy and laughter. Sarah Mills, a weary single mother, stood alone in her dimly lit home, the shadows of despair pressing heavily against her chest. Her husband had vanished without a trace, leaving behind echoes of memories and 2 frightened children, Lily and Danny, abandoned in the dark corners of their home while she worked double shifts at the diner and late at the supermarket. With each turn of her key, dread gnawed at her heart, praying for a glimpse of her family. The door creaked open, and their small, dark house answered her desire with an eerie silence. But on this unsettling night, the stillness was shattered. After the diner closed, Sarah's phone vibrated violently against the kitchen counter, drawing her attention like a moth to a flame. She grabbed it, only to be met with a series of chilling messages, the words eerily reminiscent of her husband's voice. Panic washed over her. What kind of cruel joke was this? Dismissing the messages felt hollow when dread tightened its grip, painting grotesque scenarios in her mind. The apartment felt alive, whispering horrors she could barely understand, and shadows danced restlessly beyond her vision. "Mom, I'm scared." Danny's muffled voice quivered from the other room. Her heart raced. She glanced at the time. She was already late. The walls around her felt like they were closing in as the air thickened with whispers, chilling the night. Determined to protect her children from whatever shadows lurked beyond, Sarah felt a pull towards St. Joseph's Hospital, its decrepit structure resembling the crumbling fabric of their once happy lives. The stories about St. Joseph's had circulated through the neighborhood, ghosts of malpractice victims trapped in its decaying halls, abandoned like her family. As she stood at its broken entrance, the wind howled like a warning, and the chill sunk into her bones. But urgency gripped her. She needed answers. Gritting her teeth, she flicked on her flashlight, the beam dancing across peeling paint and shattered glass, plunging her deeper into the darkness. Shadows loomed, whispering secrets hidden in the cracks of sanity. What was real? What was her imagination? The further she ventured, the more her heart raced. Footsteps echoing in the distance sent shivers down her spine, and she fought the urge to turn back. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Was that the shimmer of a figure at the far end of the corridor? A cold sweat broke out on her skin as instinct urged her to run, but dread pulled her in deeper. She could almost hear their cries, the wronged murmuring secrets in the shadows, the heartbeat of fallen souls entrusting her with their stories. And then, there was that nagging thought about their family friend. Why was he always around? Suddenly her phone buzzed again. Trembling, Sarah opened the message, only to be greeted by a haunting image of her children, eyes wide and pleading. The text sent icy chills through her. "Help us." A gut-wrenching scream clawed its way up her throat as the shadows morphed and darkness closed in, chasing her to the edge of reality. On the brink of truth and despair, she was haunted by one agonizing question. Would she uncover the sinister secrets in time to save her family, or would she join the whispers that filled those forsaken halls? Sarah's breath came in ragged bursts as she stumbled further into the bowels of St. Joseph's Hospital, her flashlight beam trembling as her hand quaked with fear. Each step she took echoed like a heartbeat in the hollow silence, the oppressive darkness wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. The air was thick and stale, tasting of mildew and decay, a far cry from the laughter that once filled her home. "Mom!" Danny's voice sliced through the silence, a whisper that seemed to claw at her insides. It was a cry laden with desperation, and it drew her deeper into the shadows. With each painstaking step, the weight of dread grew heavier. She had to find them. She pushed the thoughts of fear out of her mind, fueled only by the image of Lily and Danny's faces, their wide, frightened eyes sending adrenaline racing through her veins. As she turned a corner, the flashlight beam caught a glimpse of something unnatural. A figure stood just at the edge of visibility. It was fleeting, flickering in and out like a broken film reel. Sarah froze, her heart crashing against her ribcage. "Who's there?" she stammered, her voice trembling like the dying light of her flashlight. Silence settled heavily, pressing down on her. Then, a low, hollow laugh reverberated through the corridor, echoing as though 1,000 ghosts were joining in a twisted choir. Panic surged through her, the sound churning her stomach, and she spun on her heels to run back, a primal instinct taking over. However, each twist and turn of the hospital felt like an endless loop. She was trapped. Shadows shifted on the walls, whispering secrets she didn't want to hear. Flashes of memory invaded her mind, how often she reassured Lily and Danny that everything would be fine, how she believed in their safety. Each memory now felt tainted, like a lie hanging over her head. Then, in the delicate silence that followed her panicked breaths, she heard it again, a voice, stronger this time, cutting through the dark. "Mom, please, they're coming for us." It was Danny, but the tone was different. It carried urgency laced with an edge of terror. Sarah's heart lurched. "I'm coming," she cried, certainty battling the rising dread within her. She pressed on, determined to reach the source of her children's cries. A door ahead glimmered, slightly ajar, a weak light seeping through the crack. Hope flickered momentarily, igniting a desperate drive within her. But as she approached, the light dimmed and flickered, morphing into grotesque shadows that twisted and contorted. The doorknob was cold as she gripped it, ice shooting through her wrist. With a swift motion, she turned the handle, and the door creaked open, revealing a room draped in eerie pallor. Inside, a figure loomed, a dark silhouette shadowed against the faint light. The outline soothed a flutter of hope, but it was short-lived. As it turned towards her, Sarah's stomach dropped. It was a face she knew all too well, the familiar features twisting into a sinister grin that made her blood run cold. "Hello, Sarah," the figure whispered, an equal mix of menace and familiarity. "Missed me?" The sound of distant laughter filled the air, growing louder as shadows coalesced into forms, a horde of restless souls joining the ghostly figure. Their eyes hollow, faces twisted in anguish. Her thoughts raced, heart racing to the rhythm of a terrified dance. They weren't just haunting her family, they were enticing her deeper into their world. Would she dare confront this familiar specter, or would she be swallowed by the darkness, joining the restless whispers in eternal despair? "Mom, don't leave us." Danny's voice penetrated through the cacophony of laughter, dragging Sarah back to her dire reality. She couldn't lose him, not now. Not to whatever nightmare awaited her in this forsaken place. The figure before her twisted into a grotesque version of her mother, a once cherished face now marred by darkness. An air of malevolence draped over it, thick like fog. Sarah could barely breathe. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but a deeper need, a primal draw towards her children, kept her rooted in place. "Lily, Danny," she shouted, her voice mingling desperately with the haunting echoes. Each word felt like a plea cast into an abyss. A laugh broke out again, deeper and more sinister this time, rattling her bones. The shadows shifted, closing in, their hollow eyes now locking onto her, hungry. "Your precious children are just beyond reach," the distorted face taunted. "Do you really think you can save them? You couldn't save me. Remember?" Sarah recoiled, shame and sadness curling around her heart like a vice. Guilt surged through her, the memories of her mother racked by disease, slipping away, almost dancing tauntingly in her mind. "No, I couldn't save you, I couldn't, but I can help you, Sarah," the figure said, its voice dripping with a sickly sweet invitation. "Join me. Join us." Before she realized it, other shadows lengthened, crawling closer, their whispers rising into a frenzied murmur. Every syllable spiraled into her consciousness, wrapping around her sanity, tangling under her skin. "They need you to understand." "No," she shouted. I'm their mother. I'll save them. As if triggered by her defiance, the shadows recoiled, screeching in unison, their piercing cries resonating deep in her chest, shaking her resolve. Mom! Danny's voice turned shrill, a vessel of fear piercing through the darkness. Please, they're coming. You have to hurry. She spun towards the noise, her heart pounding against the suffocating silence. The door behind her, the one she had entered through, suddenly slammed shut. Its sound reverberated like an executioner-esque gavel, sealing her fate in this chamber of nightmares. Come play with us. The familiar voice beckoned again from the shadows, prolonging each syllable, thick with mockery. You'll never leave, Sarah. You can't. Not while they cradle their despair. They need your darkness. With trembling hands, Sarah brushed her fingers against the wall, fingers brushing over cold sweat. Or was it blood? The shadows surged forward, their forms intermingling with her own terror. But amidst the chaos, another sound emerged, a soft cry that sent chills racing down her spine. Mom! Please no! Sarah screamed. Stay away from him. She lunged toward the sound, toward the flickering of dim light that bled through the corners of her mind, her will to fight refueled by the bond of motherhood. In that moment, the twisted faces recoiled, their laughter dimming into something more sinister, more urgent. The walls around started to bulge inwards as if the very asylum was alive, hungry. Sarah realized she was running out of time. Give in, Sarah. 1,000 voices echoed, melding together into a spine-chilling dirge. Embrace the void. With a final, desperate breath, she turned away from the shadows, facing the darkness beyond the door. Every muscle tensed as she reached for the handle. Would she be able to wrench it open? Or would she step into the abyss, abandoning her children to the hands of fate? In those agonizing moments, she gripped it tight, not knowing what lay beyond, only knowing she wouldn't ever find peace unless she faced it. Danny, I'm coming. As she pulled, the door groaned ominously, revealing a tunnel of darkness that promised more than just a passage. It promised truths hidden from the light. Would it lead her to the children she so desperately sought, or deeper into the torment that haunted her? The shadows writhed, seething with hunger, as the door swung wide, inviting her into an unknown horror. What lay beyond it? The world beyond beckoned, breathing life into her deepest fears. The door creaked as it swung open, revealing a slim corridor draped in darkness. Sarah felt an icy breath sweep down her spine, almost as if the shadows were exhaling the despair she tried to escape. Whatever lay ahead was more than a mere passage. It was a grave invitation. Danny! She shouted, her voice trembling. The darkness swallowed her words, but she pressed forward, driven by the echo of her child's cry. Each step felt like stepping deeper into something twisted and wrong. The walls pulsated with a life of their own, sweat slicked and pulsating like a heartbeat. Suddenly, a flicker of light bloomed ahead, an ethereal glow that beckoned her like a moth to a flame. For a brief moment, it warmed her heart, rekindling hope. But that hope was all too fleeting. As she hurried toward it, the shadowy figures of twisted limbs groped for her from the walls. She felt their cold fingers graze her skin, their whispers crawling into her consciousness, snarling her very name. Sarah, come play. Get away from me, she screamed, ripping herself from their grasp, her feet pounding against the floor. Each heartbeat echoed louder in her ears, a frantic drum that pushed her onward. The glow intensified, revealing a small room at the end of the corridor, and as she burst through the door, the horror solidified. There, in the center, stood a distorted figure, its back turned to her. Mom, help us, came a voice that broke her heart. It was Danny. His small form trembled in the illumination, but when he turned, his eyes were hollow sockets deep in a pale face twisted in unnatural fear. No, she cried, stepping forward, but the room warped. The walls shrank inward, contorting with the rhythm of desperation. Shadows writhed, elongating with darkness, stretching arms that ensnared her like chain links, holding her in place. Join us, the sinister command echoed from the figure. It turned slowly, revealing a visage that was both Danny and something completely wrong, tainted by the abyss. "Mommy!" Lily's voice sang out next, soft but insistent. "Please save us." Frozen in place, Sarah's thoughts raced. She watched as her children reached toward her, but they were engulfed in shadows, their bodies dimming while the darkness creamed around them, eager to swallow what remained of their innocence. "Help us, Mom!" they chorused, the sounds straining into something choking and agonized. "No!" she thrashed against the bindings of darkness clinging to her. "I won't let you take them. Why do you resist?" The figure taunted, an echo of her mother's voice twisted with glee. "Your light only strengthens our hunger. You'll never escape. Your darkness belongs to us." In that moment, fear transformed into a primordial rage. Scraping, thrashing, she clawed at the shadows, desperate to reach her children. Then, suddenly, the dim light flared, blinding her. "Surrender, Sarah. Embrace us." The room pulsated with energy, drawing her towards the void, the temptation to give in simmering like poison in her gut. She hesitated. Could she truly be the darkness they craved? "Mom!" Danny gasped, and with that she surrendered. Not to the shadows beckoning, but to her instinct to fight. "Get back!" she roared, shattering the suffocating haze around her, as flames erupted from within her love, igniting into unyielding light. The hallway darkened to a mere backdrop against her shimmering defiance. But the shadows recoiled, screeching in agony as the light consumed them. Would it be enough to save her children? The figure twisted, mouth stretching into a mirthless grin, its face contorting. "You think this will save them?" Sarah felt the ground tremble. The shadows screamed, but her resolve was unbreakable. "Don't give up," she shouted to her children, filling the room with her fierce love. And as the light cast a brilliant glow, the room began to warp again. The floor cracked. Would she be able to hold her ground against the dark? Would she shatter the chains that bound her soul? In the chaos, a sliver of doubt whispered behind her, the faintest echo of fear. "Is this truly the end you seek?" Teased. Just before the darkness could swallow her whole, she felt the cracks beneath her feet widen. And then, "Nothing but blackness help us," the cries echoed once again. Were they closer? Would she have the strength to pull them from the depths? What if it was not her children who needed saving, but her very soul? The darkness consumed her whole, wrapping around Sarah like a heavy shroud. It was suffocating, twisting her thoughts, pulling her into its clammy embrace. She couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, charged with despair. "Mom?" The voice echoed softly, cutting through the void like a whisper of silk on skin. "Danny?" she gasped, her heart racing. "Mommy! Help!" Their cries were a distant melody, each note twisted with fear, and she fought against the shadows binding her. Closing her eyes for a brief moment, she racked her mind for a way out. Panic clawed at her throat. Was this what she deserved for being too late? No, it can't end like this. Suddenly, she felt a tug at her consciousness, and there it was, the flicker of something familiar. Light. The warmth surged through her, pushing back the darkness just enough for her to see. The laughter and joy of her children crossed her mind, a bright tapestry woven from every happy memory. "Hold on," she screamed, the shadows buckling under her newfound vigor. "I'm coming." The crescendo of their voices mixed in with that overwhelming darkness, a chorus of anguish. The shadows writhed, hissing as they recoiled from her light, their hold loosening just a fraction. But something shifted. A rumbling growl filled the air, a sound so primal it vibrated through her bones. The distorted figure again materialized in front of her, its grin stretching wider, a mockery of comfort. "You think you can fight me after what I've given you?" It leaned closer, inhaling her fear like a glutton. "You're nothing without me." The walls shook, and the floor splintered beneath her. Desperation flooded her senses, thick and bitter. Images of darkness filled her mind, memories of sadness, hopelessness, all the times she felt inadequate. This was what it thrived on. "Sarah, your children are lost," it hissed, curling its fingers toward her. Join us. They will be safe. She felt their presence dimming, vibrating against the shadows like lost echoes. No, I want tea, Sarah shouted defiantly, her voice resonating with fierce love. You want my darkness? You'll have to fight for it. Determination lit her again. She pushed against the tide of shadows, allowing her anger to fuel her heart, her love blurring the lines between light and dark. The room began to shudder violently, shadows screaming as the crack between them widened, threatening to consume all. "Mommy!" Danny cried, a desperate plea that sliced through the chaos. "Hold on," she screamed back, her voice trembling but filled with fierce resolve. "I will save you." The ground cracked beneath her again, fissures spreading like black veins. The air thickened, turning electric, crackling with energy that made the very hairs on her body stand on end. Shades lashed at her, scratching and tearing, their shadows melding into one another, seeking vulnerability. "Give in," the figure purred, voice dripping with predatory temptation. "You know they can't last forever." It was a lie. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut and pushed the dark whispers away. She envisioned her children's faces, vibrant and full of life, chasing each other across sunny fields. Laughter bubbled up inside her, pure and radiant. "Danny, Lily," she called again, her voice powerful. "You are not alone." The echoes of hope surged through the darkness, causing cracks to pulse with light. The shadows writhed in agony, their forms twisting violently. The ground rumbled as if responding to her will. But the figure loomed larger, determination emanating from its twisted face, narrowing what little hope remained. "You'll doom us all," it snarled. She had to focus. She let her emotions swirl until all she saw was the light radiating from her heart. And then she felt a flicker, located deep within the chaos, a faint warmth reaching out. She wasn't alone. Neither of them were. "I'm not ready to give up." With a final surge of energy, she erupted into pure brilliance, bathing the darkened light, shattering the chains of despair. In an instant, the world around her shattered into 1,000 pieces of vibrant color. But just as quickly, they collapsed into blackness again. This time, the screaming stopped, expectations twisted, and Sarah braced herself. Had she freed her children, or brought them deeper into the abyss? "Mom," the voice came again, closer now but dimmed. In that heartbeat of clarity, fleeting and vulnerable, she felt the weight of dread creep back. Were the shadows truly vanquished, or had they merely retreated in their grotesque waltz, waiting for her to falter? "Help us," the plea rang out once more, echoing into silence. Could the pull of darkness swallow her whole without her realizing it? Would the flickering light be enough to guide her through this nightmare? With a breath caught in her throat, she dared not open her eyes. What came next? With her heart still pounding, Sarah opened her eyes, squinting against the remnants of light that struggled valiantly against the encroaching darkness. But the colors faded quickly, swallowed up as if they were never there, vanishing into the suffocating blackness that surrounded her. "Mommy!" Danny's voice, barely a whisper now, floated through the thick air. It was laced with pain, a sound so small that it pulled her gut into knots. She fought hard to keep tears at bay. "Danny! Lily!" she screamed again, but her voice faltered, trembling like the flicker of a candle in a storm. Then, the sensation invaded her, cold, creeping, slithering, like icy fingers tracing down her spine. Sarah's body stiffened, dread sealing her limbs. The darkness swirled around her, and she could feel it probing, testing her defenses, just waiting for the moment she would succumb to despair. The growl returned, low and primal. It vibrated through her bones, a rhythmic reminder that she was not alone in this void. "Your children need you, and yet you choose to resist." It taunted, its voice echoing around her, sinister and smooth as silk. "You're failing them." A chill shot down her spine. The truth of the words landed hard. Just how far had she pushed her kids away, always too exhausted to listen, too consumed by her own guilt? The shadows whispered to her of every moment she'd turned a blind eye, every time she'd been too wrapped up in doubt to embrace the love they offered. No, she muttered, shaking her head fiercely, pushing against the encroaching shadows with trembling hands. But the darkness wrapped tighter, squeezing her thoughts until they felt like broken glass in her mind. "Join us, Sarah," it hummed sweetly seductive. "We are your only way out." That phrase latched onto her like a parasite, feeding on her weakness. Was surrender the only way? Every dark memory it fed her hurt, stinging with the reality of her choices. This shadow thrived on despair. Each drop of fear it coaxed from her growing denser, swallowing whole her moments of joy. "Fight it," she gasped, her breath quickening. "You're lying." With each denial, she felt a burst of warmth, a flicker of hope igniting somewhere deep within. She closed her eyes again and focused fiercely on Danny and Lily. She remembered the way Lily twirled in her pastel dress, giggling as the sunlight danced through her hair. Danny racing down the street on his bike, the wind whipping through his curls, the sound of his laughter like music in her ears. "Danny! Lily!" she shouted again, voice cracking yet growing stronger. "Stay with me. I'm coming." The shadows recoiled, as if fearing the potency of her renewed voice. The darkness twisted, brown and thick, writhing like a wounded creature. But just beyond, the figure emerged massive and grotesque, an abomination that seemed to drink in the misery. Its toothy grin split its face wide, eyes glowing with malicious glee. "They are far beyond your reach," it mocked, the voice thick with disdain. Sarah's heart plummeted. "No, I won't believe you." Yet doubt clawed at her again. Each flicker of hope waged war against the suffocating weight of despair. She felt the darkness throb, pulsing as if it had its own heartbeat, feeding off her anguish. Then came another sound, the unmistakable scrape of nails against wood, echoing in the depths of her mind. It reverberated through the void, blending into the anguished cries of her children. "Help us!" it came again, joined now by the unmistakable sound of something moving. Sarah's pulse quickened, adrenaline flooding her senses. Terrified, she turned her head, searching for the source. Was it real, or just another trick of the darkness? "Mommy!" they called together, a chorus that twisted itself into her very soul. And then came the laughter, a sound like shards of glass falling to the floor. It was twisted, mingling with those pleas, a cruel mockery of joy. "Find them," the voice hissed, the shadows creeping closer, more insistent, threatening to drown her out completely. The laughter escalated, filling the air, dominating her thoughts. She pressed her palms against her ears, trying to block it out, but it only grew louder, relentless and chilling. "Find them," it whispered again, taunting. Where were they? Panic rose in her throat like bile. She took a shaky breath, her resolve hardening. She had to push back, had to find her children if they were lost somewhere in this black void. She would not stop until they were safe, no matter how deep the darkness dug its claws into her. "Get away from me!" she shouted into the abyss, blindly reaching for the children she didn't want to lose no matter the cost. But as she searched, she felt the grip of despair tightening, shadows swirling so rapidly they turned to a gale, howling like wolves closing in on prey. What was waiting for her beneath that surface? What was hidden where fear thrived? With the pull of darkness around her, and desperation enveloping her heart, she closed her eyes again, bracing for what lay ahead. Would she discover the truth, or become entangled in the web of shadows? The laughter echoed again, and for one heart-stopping second she realized it wasn't just a trick of the dark. Something was coming. Sarah stood frozen, the laughter creeping under her skin like 1,000 tiny needles, each one digging deeper into her resolve. The figure loomed larger now, its grotesque form writhing, flickering like a faulty neon sign, oscillating between shadows and shapes. "Mommy!" The plea sliced through the chaos, and instinct drove her forward. With every ounce of willpower, she fought the urge to succumb to despair. She had to find them. The shadows swirled, forming a twisted labyrinth. The darkness concealed secrets, each corner harboring nightmares waiting to pounce. Taking a deep breath, Sarah braced herself and stepped into the inky shroud, her heart hammering like a war drum. "Danny! Lily!" I'm coming. Her voice rang out again, but it barely made it past her lips before being swallowed by the consuming void. Was she truly losing them, or was this all a cruel game? With each step, the air weighted her down. It felt thick, as if breathing were a luxury she could no longer afford. Desperation clawed at her throat. She strained to hear any sound, any sign that they were close. Faint echoes filtered through the darkness. Laughter turned hysterical. Taunts layered over her children's cries. "They're so far away, Sarah," it mocked, wrapping itself around her thoughts. "Why don't you join them?" "No," she shouted fiercely, fists clenched. "I will find them." But it was becoming harder to believe. As she navigated the shadows, fragments of memories flooded her mind, each one sharper than the last. Times she hadn't shown up to a school event. Days her frustrations had silenced her children's laughter. They were drowning, lost within her failures. Just then, a chill washed over her, a cold that felt like death. It crept from her neck to her fingertips, sudden and all-consuming. She staggered back, horror clawing at her insides. Images of her children flashed: laughter, warmth, sunny days. But now it twisted, contorted, shrouded in darkness. "Mommy!" Their voices cried again, stronger now, urgent. "Danny! Lily!" she called, each syllable echoing back to her, wrapping around her in mocking reverberation. The growling intensified, vibrating the very ground beneath her feet. It was more visceral now, a threat she could almost taste. Sarah gritted her teeth, palms slick with sweat. "Show yourself," she screamed, her resolve sparked anew. "If you think you can scare me, you're wrong." With a snap, the laughter turned sinister, morphing into a howling wind that whipped around her, wrapping tighter, constricting her chest. The shadows darted forward, darting into her vision, a flurry of movement, everything happening at once. And then silence fell, sudden and absolute. Heart racing, she strained to see through the dim light. "Where are they?" she whispered, terror threading through her words. A soft whimper pierced the stillness. It was there, just ahead, a flicker of light, a doorway. Hope ignited within her, a warm glow amid the desolation. She rushed toward it, but as she approached, the light dimmed, retreating into the shadows, mocking her like a cruel joke. "Mommy, don't leave us." The cries merged into a desperate plea, pulling at her very core. "No," she gasped. "I'm here. I'm right here." The figure lurched from the shadows, immense and suffocating. Its grin stretched wider, shadows spilling off its form like smoke. With a guttural snarl, it loomed closer, and the air crackled with dark energy. "Join them," it hissed, oozing malice. "You know you want to." The decision hit her like a sledgehammer. She couldn't turn back. She wouldn't abandon her children. They were close, so close. Strength pooled in her legs as she pressed onward. No matter the cost. But in this realm of perilous shadows, just how much would she have to sacrifice to reach them? And as she ran toward that flickering light, she felt a deep tremor beneath her, as if the very ground was warning her of something powerful lurking just beneath, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Get ready, Sarah." The voice coiled around her heart like a serpent. "You're about to learn the darkest truth of all what waited for her on the other side." She lunged into the light, bracing for the unimaginable. The light exploded around her, radiant and blinding. Sarah felt herself being swept away, the energy pulling her through like a raging torrent. The laughter faded into a distant echo, replaced by a resounding silence that draped itself over her like a suffocating blanket. When the brightness finally receded, it left her standing in an eerily quiet room. Dimly lit, it was cluttered with toys strewn across the floor, her children's toys. The familiar shapes, worn from years of play, struck a chord of nostalgia that twisted into panic. "Danny! Lily!" she cried, her voice slicing through the heavy atmosphere. No response, just stillness. The air was stale, filled with an underlying scent of decay. She took a hesitant step forward, glancing around the room as it slowly came into view. Family photographs adorned the walls, smiling faces captured in moments of happiness, and yet all of it felt wrong. The smiles seemed to mock her now, tainted with the knowledge of what lay hidden just beneath the surface. "Where are you?" Each word trembled, ringing hollow in the silence. And in that silence, she could almost hear the shadows whispering, swirling with delight at her torment. With dread pooling in her gut, she moved toward the hallway. Each creak of the floorboards sent waves of unease rippling through her. It felt like walking further into a trap, but the thought of her children spurred her forward. "Danny! Lily!" She called again, her voice now a raw whisper. The hallway stretched out ahead of her, the walls closing in as if the very house itself was alive, pulsating with malignance. Shadows flickered, forming faces that wavered at the edge of her vision. She turned a corner, and there it was, a door slightly ajar, a flicker of light spilling into the dimness. Hope clawed at her in desperate tendrils. "Please be in there," she pleaded silently as she pushed it open. The sight nearly shattered her resolve. The room was an unsettling replica of her children's bedroom. Their beds were neatly made, and their favorite books lined the shelves. But a weight hung in the air, heavy like a storm before the thunder strikes. "Mommy!" A small voice cried out, echoing again. Was it her imagination, or were they really here, trapped? The sound flowed through her, filling her with alarming urgency. "Help us, Mommy! Please!" They were close. Bursting through the haze of her fear, she dashed toward the closed bathroom door, where the voices seemed to emanate from. The doorknob felt cool against her palm, a stark contrast to the heat swelling in her chest. "Hold on," she shouted, twisting the knob and flinging the door open. Inside was a swirling vortex of shadows coiling around the tub, the laughter growing louder. And there, in the center of it all, her children appeared, translucent and terrified, eyes wide with a fear that cut deep into her heart. "Mommy!" Danny's voice trembled like a fragile leaf in the wind. "Get away from them!" She screamed at the swirling shadows, heart racing, panic surging in her veins like fire. In that moment, the shadows lunged at her, tendrils reaching out to embrace her. The chill seeped into her skin as they encircled her, invading her mind, filling it with dread. "Join us," they hissed, each syllable dripping malice. "Stop," she shouted. "You can't have them." Her hands flew out, desperate to break free from the binding terror as her vision blurred. Thunder echoed through the walls, a sound not of nature but of some otherworldly malevolence. She could feel it tightening around her throat. "Mommy, please!" The cries of her children pierced through the haze. She had to make a choice, her children or herself. The shadows pressed in tighter, squeezing the very breath from her lungs. And just as despair threatened to swallow her whole, the energy within her surged, a flicker of resolve sparking against their encroaching darkness. "Get away from them!" she bellowed, and with an unexpected force, pushed against the darkness binding her. The shadows reeled back, momentarily staggering. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." In that heartbeat, the dam of fear broke, and she felt her spirit rise, invigorated with the love of her children. They needed her. She would not lose them. But as she steadied herself, she felt the ominous rumble beneath her once more, stronger now, as if the very ground was about to crack open. "What have you awakened?" The shadows howled in fury. An eerie silence settled, holding its breath for what came next. And then, from the depths of that darkness, something stirred. Something far worse than she ever anticipated. What could be lurking in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself? Sarah's heart raced as she prepared to face whatever nightmare awaited her. The shadows writhed, shifting in a frenzy as if responding to an unseen master. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, the force of it threatening to drown out her thoughts. A deep rumble echoed from the darkness, growing louder, resonating through the walls, rattling the very foundation of the house. "Get away!" Danny's voice cried, tears shimmering in his spectral eyes. "Mommy, it's coming!" Panic ignited within Sarah. She stepped forward, poised to shield her children, but the shadows lunged again. This time, they weren't just tendrils. They morphed into forms, grotesque and shifting, twisted features flickering in and out of the dim light. Faces appeared, faces of lost souls, each one etched with agony, mouths screaming but without sound. "Mommy!" Lily's voice broke through the chaos, sharp and raw. "Help us! Shut your eyes!" Sarah yelled, instinct overriding fear. She could feel the darkness pulsing with energy, hunger. The air thickened around her, tangy with dread and a scent reminiscent of burnt ash. Her own hands trembled as she reached toward the children, desperate to pull them to safety. But the shadows swirled violently, and a chilling laughter erupted, carrying the weight of 1,000 nightmares. "She can't save you," it taunted, wrapping its icy grip tighter around her throat. "They belong to us now." The bathroom tiles glowed with an unsettling light, illuminating the faces of those shadows. They were watching her, hungry, waiting. She felt like prey ensnared in their web. No, she felt heat surge from within her, pushing against the cold wrapped around her. Not today. With a surge of love, she thrust her hands outward, envisioning her children's laughter, their joy. The shadows recoiled, a hissing chorus of shrieks filling her ears as the force of her determination sparked. "I will not let you take them." The energy formed a barrier, momentarily pushing them back. The laughter quieted, shifting into confused murmurs. But that precious window was fleeting. In a blink, the shadows surged again, almost as if taunted by her brief resistance. "You think you can fight us?" The voices morphed into one, a deep, rumbling growl that resonated within her bones. "Join us," they whispered, every word curling around her mind like smoke. The room grew oppressive, the walls drawing in, suffocatingly close. Darkness spilled into every corner, stealing the light and hope. Suddenly, behind the shadows, another figure materialized. This one was different, a silhouette cloaked in heavier darkness, radiating a chilling malevolence. Its eyes glowed, piercing through the swirl of shadows, locking onto her with an intent that made her skin crawl. "Let them go," Sarah shouted, but the words felt feeble against the growing storm around her. The shadow figure moved closer, almost rhythmically, as if dancing towards her. "You've disturbed the barrier, woman." "This is no game," the tone warped, a smirk evident, revealing teeth sharp as knives. "You've opened the door, and now you must pay the price." Danny and Lily cried, their ethereal forms flickering, their panic contagious. "Mommy!" Their cries echoed again, pulling at Sarah's heart. She could hear the fear of her children, a fear she understood all too well. "I won't leave you," she cried, fighting against the encroaching shadows. But the shadow figure laughed, a hollow sound resonating with ancient knowledge. "What will you sacrifice to keep them?" A terrible choice loomed ahead, sharper than the teeth of the shadows. The tension was unbearable, arcing through the air thicker than the darkness surrounding her. The looming threat felt like a dark storm ready to engulf her. As if sensing her hesitation, the shadows began to close in on her children. "Time is running out," the voice taunted, sinister and sweet. In that fraught moment, Sarah felt time dilate, each second stretching painfully. She was on the precipice of a decision that could cost her everything. What would she give up to save them? A jagged crack of thunder roared outside, and the figure's gaze sharpened. "Choose." Just then, something unexpected happened, something that would send tremors through the darkness itself. What was awakening beneath the shadows? And could Sarah wield its power before it was too late? As the thunder roared outside, Sarah felt an odd resonance deep within her. She marveled at a flicker of something she hadn't noticed before, the potential of her love, surging like molten lava, ready to explode. "Join me!" the shadow figure boomed, spreading its arms wide as if to embrace her. "Leave behind your failures, your pain, and embrace eternal darkness." Her heart raced, a drum echoing through the tempest of shadows. How tempting it was to give in, to release all the guilt and anger, to cast off the weight of her burdens, but she couldn't. And oh, she screamed, a primal roar echoing through the darkness. The shadows writhed, recoiling from her fierce defiance like a snake from a fire. "I won't give up," Not for anything. As she tore through the thick blanket of despair encasing her thoughts, the warmth of her children blossomed deep within her every shared laugh, each cherished moment flooding her mind. A powerful light cascaded from her heart, unwinding like a golden thread through the darkness, illuminating everything it touched. Danny, Lily. Her voice reverberated through the heavy air. I am coming for you. The shadows convulsed violently, lost souls shrieking as the warmth of her intent surged forth, washing over them like a flood. Their forms started to dissipate under the weight of her light, the connection she made with her children severing their sinister grip. Mommy! Danny's voice cut through the chaos, his fear palpable. Hold on, she cried, weaving her energy into a protective cocoon. I won't let you go. I will save you. With each footfall, she stumbled closer to where the vortex pulled at her children. The sinister figure seemed to falter, momentarily stunned by her radiant force, just enough for her to brace against the tide. Every step felt like wading through quicksand, but she pushed hardest with her heart, literally straining against the tightness of despair. The shadows screamed and clawed at her, wanting to drag her back into the abyss. Join us, Sarah. It echoed with 1,000 voices, swirling and converging, but she resisted. No, you will not have us. Sarah raised her hands, fighting back tears, fight or flight raging deep inside her. With one final yell, she unleashed every ounce of love she had, radiating it outward like a shimmering wave crashing against the dark tide. The shadows erupted, the air crackling with energy until a blinding light enveloped everything, scorching darkness away as flames burst from her heart. Mom! Came the chorus of her children, and in that moment of fierce desperation, a burst of color illuminated the room. Stay close to me, she roared, drawing them in with her light. Frantically, she turned her focus to the swirling shadows. You think you can take my family? You don't know the depths of a mother's love. As if on cue, the dark figure's face twisted in fury, its form writhing as the warmth encroached upon it. You're a fool, it bellowed, but Sarah kept pushing, tendrils of light wrapping around her children, illuminating their forms. Danny, Lily, I can see you. Each word seeped into their very essence, pulling them from the vortex that held them captive. Focus on me. With that final push, the shadow figure reared back, the waves of shadows crashing against the barrier of warmth she'd created. It screamed, a terrible wail that echoed into the darkness. You cannot win, get away from them. Sarah unleashed one last surge of light, a blinding pulse that shattered through the darkness. The shadows exploded outward, spinning into a cloudy swirl before vanishing as the darkness disintegrated around them. In a brilliant eruption, Sarah felt her feet on solid ground once more. Her heart raced as she gasped for air, tears streaming down her face. The air grew lighter, filled with an essence she hadn't felt in ages. Mommy! Danny cried, his small arms wrapping around her waist. I'm here. I'm here. She choked back tears, embracing both children tightly. They stood together, surrounded by the faint shimmering light that flickered before them, nesting safely in her arms as the last vestiges of darkness dissolved into nothingness. St. Joseph's Hospital, once a cursed amalgam of shadows, faded behind them as if erased from existence. The oppressive weight lifted, and the three of them stood under a glorious sky painted with hope. What just happened? Danny whispered in awe. Sarah held her children even tighter, her heart filled with gratitude and relief. The darkness tried to take us, she said softly, but together, we'll always shine brighter than any shadow. A quiet peace settled in, shaking loose the last remnants of pain. She would carry the memory of that struggle but would no longer be bound by it. Hand in hand, as the daylight enveloped them, they turned away from the remnants of fear, stepping into a future filled with hope, laughter, and love. As they walked into the warmth of a new beginning, Sarah felt a smile creep across her face. The weight of despair finally lifted. Let the sun set on that darkness for good. But just before they stepped fully into the light, a shadow danced on the edge of her vision, a deep whisper in the wind. Until we meet again. And with that fleeting phrase, they emerged into the vibrant world beyond, knowing the light is always theirs to share. Now, if you've made it this far in the story, here's what I need you to do: subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss more exclusive tales that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support seriously. It matters. I want to see the comments section flooded with your reactions and theories about this ending. What do you think happens next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show me your true fandom and let us keep this story rolling.